Yes, we are back with preseason takeaways after watching all 16 first preseason games. We have about 14, 15 major passing attacks to talk through after we discuss 12, 13, 14 backfields yesterday. If you haven't watched that one, go back and view that video. But today, Hayden, man, we have a ton of rookies at quarterback, wide receiver, tight end, plus some uncertain depth charts that we definitely had some major lessons learned on.
That's a good point. On our YouTube channel, you go back, watch some other previous videos. A lot of the rookies that we're talking about, we have like in-depth rookie profiles on these guys too, so you can kind of compare our notes. So we have probably 50 to 100 videos that you guys can go back and watch.
And the caveat, we don't want to say this before every single subject that we're talking about today. This is one preseason week mixed with off-season coach speak and practice reports. So we try to package that all together. Yep. I do believe that there is something to a through line, a thread line of does what we saw in this first preseason week of who did play, who didn't, and how they performed. Does that match what we have heard, listened to, seen during preseason activities, training camp activities too? And we're just trying to connect the dots with all these things. So you might think we are overreacting, underreacting. Again, trying to find the Goldilocks zone here. And let's kick things off with apparently the number one pick that no one is talking about. So why don't we lead off with him, Hayden? That is Cam Ward of the Tennessee Titans, and namely his connection with Calvin Ridley. You've talked about it, about 100 spots higher than the next closest pass catcher on the team. That's where Calvin Ridley is going in drafts. What do you think of this connection that I thought was blossoming in their first game action together?
We're talking about the depth next to Calvin Ridley. It was Van Jefferson and Tyler Lockett as like the clear 2s and 3s. So if you're wondering why the ball might funnel to Calvin Ridley a ton this year, it's probably for that. They had a couple crossing routes, a good out route as well to Calvin Ridley. They're going to be dominant this year. Ball going to Calvin Ridley. I think that Chig Okonkwo, you're going to move him up too because he played all the snaps with Cam Ward. But just drilling down on what Cam Ward was, I thought he looked exactly like how he looked in Miami, where I think that his mechanics and feet are very loose. That almost interception was like the worst of it. There was a little bit of a drifting backwards, like towards the sideline. That wasn't my favorite. At the same time, he can kind of like drift back in the pocket and like throw the ball like he's like throwing a dart, and he can really spin the football. And that was very clear on a couple of these passes to Calvin Ridley. So does he have things to work on? Absolutely. Does he also have wow arm talent? I also think that you saw a couple flashes of that even in this preseason game.
On 8 Cam Ward dropbacks, Calvin Ridley saw 3 targets for 50 yards. Yeah, condensed split early on for an out route for 10 yards. Motion into a tight split.
Yep.
The DBs were forced to pass it off. That gave him a clear runway, a clean release for a 13-yard gain. And then there was this massive middle of the field sit route between the canyon of the linebackers and the safeties. And what was notable for me there is that Cam Ward literally had 4.43 seconds to throw the football. Not often we said that for the Tennessee Titans last season. So if we get a quarterback with a big arm who's willing to stand in the pocket and then deliver these downfield strikes with that extra protection, because we know how much has been invested in that Titans offensive line this year and last year. Otherwise, the right side of the offensive line was so bad last year. It's such a big thing. There was one rep that I do want to call out here. Like Cam Ward didn't trust his, right guard to pick up a twist or a stunt up front and kind of bailed out of the pocket just as Calvin Ridley was crossing over his face at the sticks at the first down mark. Look, it's a first start for him, and that was really the one negative play.
Yeah, just going back to Calvin Ridley, last year he had the most air yards of any player, but also only had 4.2 catchable targets per game. Cam Ward is going to be way more accurate than Will Levis is. He's still going to have some aggressive downfield shots thrown to Calvin Ridley too. So yeah, he's one of these guys at the 4 or 5 turn. Like, I think that he's a totally fine click in that range. I would be very surprised if there's much fantasy relevance behind him between Van Jefferson and Tyler Lockett. Did not love what I saw from the 2 rookies, day 3 players either. So yeah, I also just big shout out to Chig Okonkwo playing all the snaps with Cam Ward. He's up about like 75% of the snaps over his last 6 games last season. They're just like attempting to get him out there for as much as they can. And obviously that's like the one weakness in his game for fantasy purposes. So I do think that he's like a good shout out for like a late round tight end, probably somebody that we'll talk about as like a streaming option once we get to the bye weeks.
In home leagues right now, if you aggregate Yahoo, ESPN, all of those, Calvin Ridley's going in the 6th round, right next to Jalen Waddle was the next closest wide receiver. Another wide receiver in that same round, Hayden, is Travis Hunter let's talk about him. The number 2 overall pick in the NFL draft. Every single practice, it felt like we were getting charts of how much time he spent at wide receiver, how much time he spent at corner. Again, finally, when teams had to be honest with us, he played 11 offensive snaps before his first single defensive snap, which means he did not play a single snap on the first Jaguars defensive series. I want to caveat this by saying, I wonder and question if that's going to flip ahead of the next preseason game. It always has. It could, and it has in a practice, I should say. What did you think of Travis Hunter when looking at him and this Jaguars offense in totality?
Well, I wanted to start with the just Jacksonville offense. It felt modern, refreshing. There was motion. There's a lot more free plays for Trevor Lawrence instead of having to like whip up some like really downfield shots. He can just throw the ball quickly out to Brian Thomas, Travis Hunter. You had a Diami Brown spot, Travis Etienne in the flats as well. So that felt refreshing for Trevor Lawrence. It seemed like he can actually breathe there for a second. Not so much was on his plate. So I think all that stuff was what we expected, but we also saw that instantly. A lot of scheme touches, including some to Travis Hunter. So I did move him up just because it does seem like what the depth charts on each side of the ball, that they need more wide receiver help than they do corner help, especially on the outside. When Travis Hunter was playing offense, primarily the slot wide receiver, you're going to see them move around a little bit because all 3 of their starting wide receivers can move into the slot. But yeah, you're going to see some screens to Travis Hunter. And if he is more of like either a third down only guy on defense or just a pure backup on defense, then I do think that this 6th round ADP in your redraft leagues, this would be stealing.
We post a video this Thursday on my favorite picks in every single round. It's going to be really, really difficult to decide between Travis Hunter and Calvin Ridley in round 6. I might cheat on that one like you did in yours just a little
Go
bit.
for it.
Look, this Buccaneers team that Liam Cohen coached last year and ran the offense, they were in 11 personnel, 3 wide receiver sets, 72% of the time. And anyone that played fantasy football, watched the NFL last season, knows how many injuries the Bucs dealt with at their wide receiver group. So despite all that, his typical standard formation and personnel group, I should say, was 3 wide receivers on the field. And so that's why, Diami Brown still played 10 snaps, Travis Hunter, 11, Brian Thomas Jr., 12. So like this, all these guys are going to play. And it's why I still like Diami Brown as like a round 15, 16, 17 dart throw late in drafts, especially like that third and short conversion that he had in a manufactured touch, I thought was really cool scheme stuff. That was very standard from Liam Cohen.
To continue on the offense, Trevor Lawrence put that freaking hospital to Brian Thomas. You better not do that again. We need Brian Thomas on the damn football field. And then more importantly, Travis Hunter on defense. He did have that missed tackle where he was coming in to stop the run. Caleb Johnson kind of gave him the stiff arm to get around him, but out in coverage, he looked pretty good, obviously going up against backups there, but he looked as fluid as you would imagine. The size, tackling, that's going to be the big caveat here, but I'm guessing that they're going to hide Travis Hunter in those situations, and maybe he plays 3rd and 7s in like those type of situations, 2-minute drills, and they're not going to like ask him to be out there on 1st and 10s on defense.
Based on how training camp practices went, do you expect him to start this next game at corner and not wide receiver?
I don't know, man. I have no idea. What do you think?
Okay, no prediction from Hayden. That's going to change with our next one. Jaxson Dart and the New York Giants, one of your favorite prospects in this past draft. We know they traded up from their 2nd round pick back into the 1st round for the quarterback after selecting Abdul Carter, who looked freaking electric out there.
Yes.
And was used quite a bit on the interior, as we've seen in practices recently. And so they're going to get all 3 of their edge pass rushers on the field. I'll give you the floor. What'd you think of Jaxson Dart's debut?
There's a chance that this last draft class completely changes the entire trajectory for the Giants. Abdul Carter, like you said, had a one-on-one rep against Deion Dawkins and beat him inside. He was also lining up inside and beating interior players. That's how you get all 3 of these edge rushers onto the field. There's a lot of stars on the Giants. They need a good quarterback to like get all these stars and actually get them into the playoffs. Jaxson Dart, I thought, looked pretty dang poised. There was like maybe 2 or 3 missed throws, I thought, just in the intermediate part. But I didn't think accuracy was like a big problem of his in college. Obviously, that big touchdown was one of the best balls of the entire preseason. He also gave his outside wide receiver an alert based off the coverage. So nothing too complicated here, but he moved well. That included moving inside the pocket, navigating the pocket a little bit better. And then obviously that aggressive shot for that touchdown was really good stuff. So he was one of the more impressive quarterbacks, I thought, of the weekend. And he looked exact kind of how I thought he was as the bull case of Jaxson Dart in college.
Yeah, there were highs and lows, like you said, standing in there, taking that shot when he knew it was going to be single high, the alert. That's a great ball. And you can just envision that being Malik Neighbors or even Darius Slayton to that side, right? And that's really what Jaxson Dart did at a high level in terms of throwing these sideline passes, especially to Tre Harris this past season. Like you said, he did airmail a few. There was that out route. There was the in breaker too. I did think that when there was this 2-person tandem route too, I did think there was, maybe you can term it a turn down, where he pumped on this 2-man route where the wide receiver was crossing over and there was like this 5-yard window over top of the linebacker, but then the safety cracked down, drove down, and then the deep post was behind it. And so rather than even going for either one, he instead tried to run and get a 1 or 2 yard gain. But, that's a read off the safety, either throw it early or throw it late. And that's just like the learning experience that you have with all these rookie quarterbacks. And I'm sure Brian Daboll is going to be in the lab with him this week on it.
Yeah, Brian Daboll, it's very evident, loves Jaxson Dart. And there's a whole like New York Giants to Ole Miss pipeline. If you guys want to go do some research on that, they like very familiar with each other even before he was drafted there. I did think that Brian Daboll ran a lot of the same concepts that Jaxson Dart was used to, which I think is just a sign of good coaching. And obviously they have not had the results, but I think that I think Brian Daboll is a good football coach, especially on offense. And I do think that between Russell Wilson, who just kind of took the check down every single time, little out routes, they do have 2 functional quarterbacks where I think we're going to be able to evaluate the entire roster here, assuming Malik Neighbors can play. By the way, it's been a week and he's like in the lineup for a half of a series. And then he's out. It's still this toe injury that's been lingering since his days at LSU. I don't want to like completely ring the alarms, but he's a 1st-round pick missing time with a toe injury that we've known about for a very long time. So I'm sure they're managing him, but like that is something like very stars and scrubs in New York. Like you have to have Andrew Thomas out there. You have to have Malik Neighbors out there. And if those guys are out, this offense completely falls apart.
Both beat writers Pat Leonard and Connor Hughes brought that up today with Malik Neighbors. Leonard asked Brian Daboll, Malik Neighbors was going to require additional tests on his toe because he was supposed to practice today. He did not. Both kind of rang the alarm bells a little bit. So it's something to track. It's this in and out of practice. He's saying he's going to return. He doesn't. There's still, 3 weeks left for us to get there. Hopefully we get there.
Keep drafting Darius Slayton, by the way. I have him like 60 spots ahead of ATP. He's in the 200s on Underdog. I do not understand this one at all. Usually I respect the market. This one, you guys are just way off.
Based on the schedule, open Commanders, Cowboys, Chiefs, Chargers, Saints, Eagles, Broncos, Eagles, 49ers, and what you saw from Jaxson Dart in this game, how long is the 21st best quarterback in the NFL going to last?
Well, I was kind of picturing that the schedule was completely like you cannot beat it. There's a lot of games in there that you mentioned that seem a little bit less intimidating than previous. It's just going to come down to the Russell Wilson. He's a very much boom bust quarterback. So if he is hot on all these downfield passes, he's going to stay in there. If some of these downfield passes lead to some interceptions, then they're going to yank him out of there. I think that they have like they want Jaxson Dart to be their guy long term, and I'm guessing they don't want to rush him out there right now. But that's just going to be contingent on Russell Wilson. Like predicting the Russell Wilson stuff is very difficult. I think that he's been a totally fine quarterback, but it is very boom bust style. And like 2 weeks of busting, then he's going to be out of there. So I don't know.
Okay, let's talk about the other rookie quarterback in Shedeur Sanders. Played the Carolina Panthers defense last Friday night, I believe. Went 14 of 23, 138 yards, 2 scores. Did scramble 4 times for 19 yards on top of it. To me, Hayden, it is fun where a player who has, just electricity around him in terms of drawing lightning from one side of the spectrum and the other, just has confidence to go out there and like do something on an NFL field where all eyes on him and what can be considered an island game in preseason. Now, getting beyond that, when you watched, what'd you see from Shedeur Sanders?
There's definitely some good. Like he's not your normal 4th string quarterback. You're not your normal day 3 quarterback. There's clearly more talent there. I had a 2nd-round grade. I viewed him as a good backup that can start some games. And like after watching that, I kind of saw some similar things. There was a couple like really nice plays. Obviously the couple touch throws in the red zone. Those were good ones. Everyone's seen those. There was also a 3rd and 8 dig from his own end zone.
Yeah.
That was one where he kind of slid out. That was probably his like best rep.
I agree.
Out there. A couple scrambles, like he did not look like super slow out there, so he's not going to be Lamar Jackson or any of these guys, but he can move around.
I thought he looked more nimble than he did at Colorado.
Yeah, maybe a little bit. So at the same time, there was also like 4 or 5 clips where he just was not pulling the trigger or was bailing out of pockets that he should not be bailing out of. So it was exactly what I watched at Colorado, which to me always meant quarterback 2, maybe quarterback 1, with some development here. Stefanski did throw a lot at him, empty, shotgun, bootlegs, under center. Like there was a lot going on in that offense, which I did think was a fairly good sign. So like stock up on Shedeur. Dylan Gabriel, you got to go prove this. Does this mean that Shedeur should go start? I'm not sure about that either.
That's the thing. He's basically been the quarterback 4 throughout training camp. Dylan Gabriel has missed time. Dylan Gabriel better go in there and look decent, or
Yes.
especially better than Shedeur Sanders, or else, honestly, Kevin Stefanski has some pie in his face for this. Like how they have handled this Shedeur-ness along with Kenny Pickett and Joe Flacco and Dylan Gabriel. Meanwhile, Gabriel has not drawn rave reviews during training camp on top of this. The thing is, with this quarterback situation, one of these rookies is going to start games in 2025. That is just how this roster is set up. The other part of this, and why maybe this is ridiculous to say, I don't want to get too invested in the Shedeur conversation or even the Dylan Gabriel conversation, is in the end, it's not going to matter. Like this team is taking a quarterback in the first round of the 2026 NFL draft. They have a second first-round pick on top of it. They are projected for the least amount of points in the NFL this year. They're going to be quite bad. And so it's all geared towards who the starter is going to be in 2026. Now, they took probably Dylan Gabriel in round 3 in order to be a long-time backup. He has to at least look like a long-time backup during preseason, or else Shedeur should totally surpass him in the thinking for at least 2025 and beyond.
And the reality is Shedeur has way more talent than Dylan Gabriel can ever provide. Like he's just not as good of an athlete. The arm is not as strong as Shedeur. Shedur's arm's not like fantastic, but he can put the ball where it needs to go with enough velocity. So you did see some of that. So yeah, whether we get Kenny Pickett in time enough for him to actually compete for the starting job, or it's going to be Joe Flacco, or maybe Shedeur Sanders starts a little bit sooner than later. It's more fun if he's actually like somewhat capable. So the Browns games would be more fun if Shedeur Sanders ends up starting some games. And previously I was like, it's probably not going to happen. After this preseason game, I think it's like really, really pressures on for Dylan Gabriel.
It's really fun for us when players do spark conversation though, with like both good plays and bad plays. And Shedeur has definitely accomplished that. So I salute you, sir, for doing that. Okay. Before we go any further, thank you for everyone that has helped us reach 150,000 subscribers. The next big hurdle for us is 160,000. The only way we can do that is if you have not hit that subscribe button down below. It is totally free. Smash it, leave a thumbs up. Plus, if you're listening to this in audio form, leave us a review. It helps more and more people find the show on their podcast platforms. Thank you so much for taking the 20 seconds in order to do that, because I can't tell you how much it does help us grow the show and grow this channel. Okay, one more rookie quarterback in Tyler Shough. He came in as quarterback 2 with the New Orleans Saints. In this game, his first action was a 2-minute drill and then had a longer drive after that. Let's get into some of the details. What'd you like? What you did not like from Tyler Shough in this game?
Well, he looked like how he did in college too, where he can throw the ball over the top. I think that he had obviously the double move touchdown, which was nice. I also thought the ball to the perimeter, I think that a faster wide receiver comes under that, and that was actually a decent enough ball. At the same time, there's some panic moments there, and he got caught slipping that a 26-year-old quarterback should not be caught slipping, where it was a unique pressure where one lineman kind of bailed out, pressure from the other side, cover 3, corner looking right at Tyler Shough. Tyler Shough is throwing the ball only to his first read, and it's a pick 6. You can't have that. So Spencer Rattler, I thought, was fine enough too. The offensive line was really bad in general. He didn't make any wow plays and stuff. So I'm like generally unmoved of this quarterback situation. It's going to be pretty disgusting out there. This offensive line has to be very good for any of this to kind of be functional. And that was not the case. That was not because of Kelvin Banks, but the interior, which they had some backups in this one. If it played like it did, it's not going to matter at all.
I'm nervous. I'm quite nervous about liking Chris Olave this year and Rashid Shaheed this year. Tyler Shough, to me, it was just so vanilla once he went out there. It was just a bunch of underneath stuff. I kind of get it when he entered and it was, again, a 2-minute drill and they want to at least get a field goal. But on top of that, he forced like a stupid 5-yard reception with 23 seconds left. And then that wasted about 11, 12 seconds. Like the thing with Tyler Shough and being this age is you have to hit the ground running. You can't make mistakes because there's not time for, like, compare it to Bryce Young, for example, who enters the league at 21 years of age, can get benched, can come back and play at a high level and still be 23 years old. Like, it just doesn't work when you are going to be 26 in a month. So he can't make these stupid mistakes. You have to basically be not in your final form, but at least a competent player that is not making day one issues. And I just don't know what to do because, again, I really like Chris Olave. I really like Rashid Shaheed. I really think Kellen Moore is going to run a ton of plays, and they've heavily invested in the offensive line. But even with my issues with how Tyler Shough plays, not that, it was unplayable stuff. It was just, again, so vanilla, check down E, that maybe we do once again get 90 targets for Alvin Kamara back in this offense.
Yeah, it's certainly possible. I will say Tyler Shough can spin the football when he's deciding to. So that 2-minute drill situation, that's a good shout out there. But I do think when he takes his downfield shots, like, he's going to be able to complete some of them. And that's where Shaheed.
But it was all just like underneath, hey, double moves. And then underneath, pressures that he's not creative. And then he takes a sack on another one. Then underneath. And then the first, second level throw that he does make, it's intercepted in an out route.
Yeah, no, for sure. And he nearly panicked on the play with like 14 seconds left, where he was throwing the ball away. It was actually a smart play, but he was this close to going full blown panic mode. So yeah, unmoved with this. I still think it's going to be Spencer Rattler in week 1. We'll see both of them, and then we'll probably see Manning or Nussmeier on the Saints next year.
Question for you, because Tyler Shough was the 40th overall pick in this past NFL draft. If Kellen Moore, who previously coached with the Philadelphia Eagles, offered the 40th overall pick to Howie Roseman for preseason legend Tanner McKee, do you think the Eagles would have accepted it?
I don't think they would have accepted it, but it would be pretty close. Tanner McKee is a starting level quarterback, man. He's like what Tyler Shough is supposed to be. Like, Tyler Shough doesn't like read through his progressions nearly as well as Tanner McKee does. And they spin the football about the same. Shough's a little bit more athletic, but like, McKee is just going from 1 to 2, big out route, nice like slot fades, keeping the thing moving. This was not even just the preseason game. We're going back a couple games with him now too. So I've been so impressed with him. I think that he's probably a top 32 quarterback. There
comes a point in every summer where you simply run out of things to do. What I do in that moment is go to my phone and go to SeatGeek. Yes, they have you covered. For tonight, if you need something to do, I can go see the Struts with Dirty Honey, go see minor league baseball. Cypress Hill with Atmosphere is also playing in my city. Or if I need to plan a date, something to do with my wife this weekend, look, I can scroll down to the Popular This Weekend tab. Katy Perry's playing in a few cities over. Or if I want something a little more niche, maybe just as rugged and uncomfortable, Redneck Brawl. Yes, you see it. Redneck Brawl is in North Carolina. As you can see, SeatGeek has everything that you need. Concerts, sports, festivals. SeatGeek has you covered and has your back because each ticket is rated on a scale of 1 to 10, so you know you're getting a good deal. So, of course, I have a promo code for you. You can use code FANTASY10 for 10% off your next set of tickets on SeatGeek. Yes, that is 10% off any tickets with promo code FANTASY10 on SeatGeek right now. Make sure you click the link in the description down below to download the app and have the code automatically added to your account so you can use it later. One more starting quarterback to discuss, and it feels like it happened a month ago and it was less than a week. Anthony Richardson and the Indianapolis Colts. We know his finger was pointed, namely his pinky, in the opposite direction. However, he's already back at practice. The issue with this is it seems like it's trending towards Daniel Jones getting the start this week. I'm not sure if that was the plan all along. It certainly might have been. When you went back and watched Anthony Richardson in the short amount of time, we all know that based on every single former player pointing it out and coach, that it was a hot look on the defensive end. The running back is supposed to escape the flat and you're supposed to dish it off over top of the pass rusher. You can argue with yourself if you want, the massive pass rushing DN running clean at you. But what do you think of AR and what should we do moving forward?
The entire offseason, got to be healthy, got to be consistent. Last 4 plays and he's hurt and he's got freaking Brian Baldinger fingers. And then all of a sudden it's hard to evaluate what the situation is going to be because now Daniel Jones is supposed to start the next game. So yeah, I moved the odds a little bit closer to Daniel Jones' side to start week 1. It's not that he played so well in this game either, but like he's eventually got to stay on the football field. And the only reason why he left the football field is like, it's only because of him. There's no tackle or tight end or running back at fault here. He just didn't like read the defense. And I thought it wasn't even like that complicated of a blitz. You just hot. I don't get why this was all that complicated. At least he has Tyler Warren to like throw the ball to at this point too. But what was your thoughts on Richardson and Daniel Jones?
Consistency seems to be the word that Shane Steichen continuously uses. And it's also repeated by all the top beat writers that cover the Indianapolis Colts. And that to me means that Shane Steichen believes that he can win with consistent quarterback play. That doesn't mean it has to be consistently good quarterback play.
Minshew.
It's just whoever shows you who they are and they are reliable in who they are, he can coach and kind of work with that.
Mm-hmm.
Anthony Richardson just, again, consistency and availability hasn't necessarily been that so far. I do believe, though, he's had like a lot of goodwill imparted on him so far this offseason. I am still optimistic. I hope he gets another shot and like really makes it work in this preseason, because in that case, we are getting a late round quarterback hammer that checks all of the boxes that we want for fantasy football. And I'm probably still going to take that opportunity because Daniel Jones is still Daniel Jones.
I do think that's a good point about Shane Steichen. Now that he has three kind of underneath weapons plus Jonathan Taylor, so now you have Warren added to Josh Downs and Michael Pittman. Everyone seems good to go right now. That you can kind of just like point and shoot your way to like hopefully like a wild card berth. And I think that's probably their best route there. So that might end up being just Daniel Jones here. The Tyler Warren stuff was fascinating. He had 3 wins against zone coverage, showed some yards after the catchability on one of them. They dialed up a little chip and release screen, which we were going to see probably plenty in Indianapolis. I did think he got blown up a couple times against Mike Green, who looked amazing for the Baltimore Ravens. So I think some of the blocking concerns might be there, but it didn't matter. Tyler Warren was out there for every single snap. He's going to get a bunch of targets in this one. And I am like beginning to wonder, like, should we be drafting the first round tight end over the other wide receivers on that team? You know, like, why is he 25 spots below? Like, how confident are you that Tyler Warren's not going to lead this team in targets? That's possible.
It's absolutely possible. Caveat that both Michael Pittman Jr., Josh Downs, and Alec Pierce did not play in this game. Right. But that simply meant that Tyler Warren is the featured player in the offense. And again, many beat writers have mentioned in practices that Tyler Warren is the featured player in this offense. The reason that they drafted him is that 3 tight ends last year for this team played around 450 snaps each. And now you're going to get one dude that's on the field for 80+% of them. To me, as a receiver, he kind of looked Mark Andrews-ish in terms of a lot of the same routes that they were running with him. The crossers, the overs, like you said, the delayed slip screen on top of it. And then plus you're getting all the inline stuff out of him too. So he didn't showcase any of the massive bulking yak that he did in college so far. So that's even another layer. And maybe we get some short yardage touchdowns on top of this. But like in your home leagues, Tyler Warren is going in the 10th round behind some tight ends that we like, and Tucker Kraft and Evan Ingram and David Njoku. But it's also not lost to me, Hayden, that like in the last 2 seasons for a position that takes a long time to develop attached to, offenses, Sam Laporta as a rookie was a tight end 1 overall. Brock Bowers was the tight end 2 overall in points per game. We could get that once again from either Tyler Warren or Colson Loveland as a top 4 or 5 producer at the position this year.
I think tight end 5 to tight end 13 is all mispriced by a round, and they should all go up earlier. That's Kelsey, I think, Mark Andrews, all those guys, and that includes Warren and Loveland and Kraft. I think that's a very good tier to be targeting 1 or 2 of these tight ends. By the way, my pre-draft comp for Tyler Warren, Mark Andrews, like you mentioned, then I had David Njoku and Taysom Hill. So he went to the right offense that they're going to scheme up some opportunities. If you're not going to win with your quarterback, you're going to win with some star players. Tyler Warren, I think, is going to get some manufactured touches. It is on my radar. New center, new guard. They've always had a good offensive line in Indianapolis. If that's no longer the case, that's going to be pretty hard to kind of overcome, I also think.
Good stuff in zone coverage, like you said, too. And if Anthony Richardson does start, then they'll probably be seeing a whole bunch of zone coverage because playing man against him might lead to some nice scrambles. Again, in your home leagues, Tyler Warren in the 10th round. Some running backs going in that round are Javonte Williams and Quinshon Judkins at this point. So, let's just take Tyler Warren and play him in the flex over one of those running backs at this point. I also believe, and I will never be selling my Adonai Mitchell stock ever, ever, ever. There are far less talented players being drafted in round 18 right now. So he definitely has talent. That's for sure. Okay. So that is all the quarterbacks that I have written down. Let's talk first round wide receivers, specifically Tetairoa McMillan. Caught that nice over the shoulder pass as an X wide receiver, single high. Bryce laid it out there. He ran the red line, created enough space on the outside shoulder in order for this teardrop to fall over his right shoulder. And then what stood out to me, Hayden, was just the connection that he and Bryce had in terms of the timing, the landmarks, and how so many throws already were anticipatory before his head even turned. And that's kind of rare to find for guys that have only practiced together and not even played in games together so far.
Yeah, McMillan's just going to run away with targets in this offense. Don't trust Xavier Legette. We'll see what we get out of the other guys. Bryce was throwing the ball to Tetairoa McMillan a ton. That obviously they had the one highlight. There was some definitely some lowlights on the McMillan film as well underneath, but the ball was going in that direction. I think that's going to be more predictive over the course of the season. So yeah, I love T-Mac, the prospect. He's perfect fit with Bryce. I think that flashy play kind of sums up the best of both of them, that you can go high point passes against press man coverage, and then Bryce Young could throw the ball into the bucket 25 yards down the field very well. And we're going to see a lot of that in this offense.
Let's talk Xavier Legette, and most notably everyone's favorite player out there in Jalen Coker, because we know Xavier Legette gets kicked out of this game for fighting with a corner that went against him and the team in joint practices earlier in the week. Just your overall thoughts, because it seems like there's 90% of the fantasy community is in favor of Jalen Coker and just believes that he's going to steal this position outright.
Well, last year I thought Jalen Coker was just straight up better than Xavier Legette. Obviously, Legette has like more theoretical upside because of his size, weight, speed, but Coker is not like bad in those categories either. And then he's just like more ready to play. Coker in this one had a one-handed catch in coverage, also scramble drill touchdown, a little nice out route versus off-man coverage as well. This is kind of what he did as a rookie. I think there's some spots to kind of nitpick Jalen Coker's profile, but after the game, this was kind of probably the most notable thing. Canales was like, we're going to play the most reliable wide receivers regardless of draft capital. That means Coker versus Legette to me. And I'm just beginning to wonder if maybe Xavier Legette is a deeply unserious person in general. I don't know, man.
I will say that comment came after a question of if Jalen Coker is going to make the roster or not. So it was more of like,
that's an insane thing. He was good last year.
No, I agree. That was the question. I wasn't the one that asked the question. Look, I firmly believe that Jalen Coker is a really talented player. And for an undrafted free agent, an incredible find for this organization. I don't want to ignore the fact, though, that Xavier Legette was playing ahead of Jalen Coker before he got kicked out of this game and has played ahead of him all summer long. And I can tell you internally, there's still a lot of belief in Xavier Legette, and they want him to be the starting wide receiver opposite Tetairoa McMillan in this offense. So things have to go like terribly wrong in order for Xavier Legette to make bad in his opportunities. And I don't think those opportunities are over. I just think the Panthers have like low-key somewhat of a, not elite talents at every single wide receiver spot, but just when you look at it from top to bottom, a lot of talent at the wide receiver position.
Yeah, they're too deep in the slot, and then you have Coker and Legette out there for the other spot. So yeah, I think that these guys are probably going to be in a little bit of rotation. I had to move Xavier Legette down like pretty significantly in the rankings.
Because he got kicked out of a preseason game?
I mean, this is just like, isn't there a trend with Xavier Legette? Like, was that shocking that happened? I mean, Coker's, and then at the same time, Coker makes plays. Like, there is a competition here.
I don't know. To me, like, there's just no change here. Like, he got kicked out of a preseason game for throwing hands, and then that's it. But look, I seem to be the only person that's left that believes that Xavier Legette can still turn into someone.
So. Yeah, I will say there's a lot of wide receivers priced around Xavier Legette that I also dropped in rankings. Not the best wide receiver tier in general. So if you want to go with the upside shot, sure. I believe that Legette at least was initially going ahead of Bryce Young. I would rather just have Bryce Young. Like, you're going to get the scrambling and stuff, and he can throw the ball to whoever. So that's kind of the avenue that I would go.
Yeah, just in your home leagues, again, aggregating ESPN and Yahoo and these. Xavier Legette, the wide receiver that's going right next to him is Jack Besh right now. So
you can't draft him.
That's some context for that. Okay, a lot of rookie wide receivers to hit on. Before we get there, on Wednesday of this week. So tomorrow, Hayden and I are going to be doing a Q&A, question and answer live stream on this channel. It's going to be in the evening around 6 or 7 Eastern. Obviously, we're going to answer questions live, but to get going, we need about 5 to 10 questions from all of you. So the most thoughtful ones, the best ones, we will answer. Leave those down in the comments down below, and we'll kick things off. We'll kick that stream off with some of the best questions out of the gate. So appreciate everyone, and I'm sure you want to tune in because we've got about an hour of questions to answer. Okay, let's head on over to the Green Bay Packers because, man, oh man, the wide receiver room is a mash unit. Since we last discussed, Matthew Golden, who we've been hyping up all offseason, Jane Reed is now in a boot, Christian Watson still in the PUP list, and there's a bunch of others. Talk us through it, Hayden.
Well, just in that game, Matthew Golden was out there for every single snap, and that was the case on family night as well. It's not that Matthew Golden like lit it up out there. He did have a slant win. He drew a DPI as well. But on the plays he wasn't targeted, you can see how they're going to use Matthew Golden, and it's the exact type of stuff that we want in fantasy. You see he's like primarily the motion man. He's out there in 2 wide receiver sets. He's going to probably be out there when they run these really heavy personnel, and there's only 1 wide receiver out there as well. There was like a little RPO option where he was the bubble if they were going to throw the pass as well. So like all this like kind of manufactured touch stuff, Matthew Golden seemed to be the guy. He has the speed for it. Texas uses him as the motion man. And then he also had a couple wins on the real routes as well. Everybody loves him. Love the coaching staff, the GM, everyone is riding high.
The quarterback.
So if he's going to be 3 rounds cheaper than the other first round wide receivers, I'll just be scooping up some Matthew Golden, especially Reed in a boot. Dobbs left practice with a minor back injury. It doesn't even matter. Those guys just might not be good enough to compete with Matthew Golden, a first round pick.
He's going in the 9th round in your home league platforms right now, right next to Emeka Egbuka. I wish I had 2 9th round selections. Is that possible in redraft leagues, Hayden? Because
you can trade for
if you're doing auction, leave with both because their salaries, their prices are going to be devalued in that format in comparison to everyone else.
Yeah.
What we love and we always talk about is LaFleur gets his guys free releases, and there are multiple full field motions out of Matthew Golden, jet sweep on top of it too. Like this is exactly what we hope for someone that has blazing speed, because it's easier to get up to that speed when you have a clean and free release. Now, we did get news on Tuesday morning that Jordan Love is having surgery on his left thumb, left hand, something wrong with the ligament. All I'm going to say is it's much better than his right hand.
Yeah, if he's going to throw with his right hand this year, then you'd rather be on the left.
I don't think he's going to throw his left hand this year.
And
that's my prediction.
It also means he's not going to pick up some stupid injury during the rest of training camp.
True.
The doctors, they say not that big of a deal. For reference, Drew Brees a couple seasons ago did this to his right hand, and he missed 5 games and then continued to throw with that weird brace and stuff. So this is his other hand. This is do not move a single Packer anyway because of this. He's going to be totally fine.
Dontavian Wicks is also missing. So it's Matthew Golden and just whoever is healthy out there.
Put him in
Load up on Matthew Golden this year. Do it.
Yeah. We don't need to see much more Matthew Golden in camp.
I mentioned his 9th round running mate in Emeka Egbuka. Are there any possible takeaways you can take from the 4 dropbacks that he played in this first preseason game?
He had a couple funny routes. One, he put up the mailbox selling a go route and then stopped on a little comeback route. I thought that was savvy stuff. Didn't get targeted on, didn't matter. His impressive route was big out route where he looked fast, getting up to speed, and then made a good high point catch. He was playing on the perimeter. He does seem like he's going to be somebody that can move inside and outside. I didn't need to see very much from him. I know he's a good football player, and he's going to be out there ready to go. So draft him too.
Okay, let's talk the Denver Broncos, because among, let's say, veteran or 2nd and 3rd year pass catchers, this to me was one of the more notable takeaways of the weekend. So this team opened in 12 personnel. We knew one wide receiver is the newly paid Cortland Sutton. The other wide receiver, though, was Marvin Mims. 19 reps with Bo Nix in totality. Cortland Sutton saw 17 of those. Marvin Mims saw 16 of those. Troy Franklin saw 8 of those. And then Devon Vele also saw 8. Again, this is notable because Marvin Mims surpassed 47% of snaps in a single game one time last year. Just one time, and it was the final playoff berth. So basically if we are interpreting what Sean Payton is saying is, hey, in the preseason, I want to audition Marvin Mims as not just in starting wide receiver as a full-time player, but also as a boundary outside wide receiver, which is another step on top of that.
Yeah, this one was shocking to me. 15 of his 16 reps were with him playing on the outside, and only 50% of his snaps were on the perimeter last year. And then the one time that he was in the slot, it was even a 12 personnel where they had 2 tight ends on that side of the hash, and then they had Courtland Sutton and Marvin Mims in the slot, but that was still a 2 wide receivers set out there. Apparently Troy Franklin's been like drawing praise in camp as a slot option there as well. This means, like, I'm just kind of translating all of this as Pat Bryant's going to take a long time. It's classic 3rd round rookie stuff. But yeah, this is an audition for Marvin Mims. He didn't do anything with the outside reps. I thought that his outside reps last year were brutal to watch, but they got him some manufactured touches. He can go over the top when he does get some off coverage or a busted coverage. So they're trying to see if they can kind of maximize this even more. He's, to me, like all speed right now.
Right.
And I don't love his like route running and his size and all that type of stuff. But if he's going to be out there for 80%, or in this case, like 90% of his snaps, then yeah, we have to move his ADP, and a lot of the wide receivers around him are kind of falling. And I think that Marvin Mims should go way up, especially for us who have been kind of doubting him for this offseason.
Oh, I mean, he was one of my 8 most disgusting picks back in June whenever we made that video. And it's because he had, I mean, of all of his catches last year, just 11 were beyond the line of scrimmage.
Yes.
He was a screen behind the line of scrimmage receiver who then took those vertical downfield shots. He was a role player last year. And this is not a role-playing role that he's in anymore. Again, we don't know if it's an audition or if it's full-time, but I'll take it as a full-time thing right now at this moment because, look, Sean Payton, for years and years since he returned to the NFL, has said that I care about size. It's what wins in the league nowadays. But that is not Marvin Mims. That is not Troy Franklin. And so maybe he's just evolving and changing with his second-year quarterback in Bo Nix. And if that's the case, and he wants more speed and more juice out there because he thinks he can get bigger at tight end, because I do think this team's going to run a lot of 12 personnel with Evan Ingram kind of being like a pseudo slot type on top of it. I mean, Marvin Mims certainly is going to keep up his yards per route run rate that he had last year as a part-time player. But then obviously that is then stretched out over many, many snaps. And he was a 10th round pick to open the summer. Now he's an 11th round selection. And like you keep saying, a lot of those 11th round wide receivers not looking so good after this first week of the preseason.
Yeah, definitely so. I'm going to be drafting him at ADP, and we'll see how much this thing climbs out there. I still think there's like some very obvious limitations, and he didn't do anything on the boundary this game to like kind of prove me otherwise. But routes are routes. Did want to note there was nothing jokery about the Evan Ingram role. He looked like a normal ass tight end. You know, like this was not some big joker specialty that I was watching. There was not a bunch of screens or weird stuff going to him. And that's also another note for Marvin Mims is last year, RJ Harvey didn't exist. J.K. Dobbins didn't exist. Evan Ingram didn't exist. Pat Bryant didn't exist. So not only could you not extrapolate the numbers in the manufactured role, but you're also adding more target competition along the way.
Let's talk the New England Patriots, and specifically Drake Maye showed off exactly why we keep hyping him up as the quarterback 14 being drafted in all your leagues right now, because he had an 11-yard scramble and then in the low red zone, an 8-yard touchdown scramble on top of it. So in your leagues, that would give you 8 points immediately on your fantasy team, less than a quarter, and without any passing on top of it. That's exactly what we love about a profile like Drake Maye that he brings to the table this year.
Yep. And I would say that the guard play was decent. Will Campbell looked solid. There was a little bit of a miscommunication. So it should look at least somewhat functional up front. So that's going to help out. Did not see Steph Diggs in this one. I'm guessing we're going to talk a bunch about Kyle Williams here in a second.
Do it now.
Okay. He played all the way into the fourth quarter. When you're lining up in 2 wide receiver sets with Efton Chisholm, like that's not a great thing. I will say this, Kyle Williams did look awesome on every press man coverage rep. He's not a slot wide receiver. I know he's small and all that type of stuff. He was playing outside against press man coverage for a lot of that game. And I've posted it before. He was just instantly creating separation. He should have had a touchdown on a slant route. He probably should have had some touchdowns over the top as well. So I thought the speed transition there, I thought that he was good against press man coverage in college, and we saw that. One problem is he was way down there. There was 14 Drake Maye plays. He was out there for 3 of them and then played all the way until Efton Chisholm was out there. So I didn't love that, but he did look good on film.
You keep saying until Efton Chisholm was out there. This squad loves Efton Chisholm. This coaching staff seemingly loves Efton Chisholm, and that to me, he's going to be like the backup to Pop Douglas if they're able to keep him as the slot wide receiver for this team.
Sure.
Kyle Williams, like, again, this is one of the talent versus, and then how do you navigate this as we do for each individual team differently. His releases are amazing. He showed the downfield speed as well. I think the ball was underthrown and was able to get out there. But exactly what we saw in college in terms of, again, outside wide receiver and X a lot of the times to release and press man coverage. Not many prospects are asked to do that very often. And then speed to pull away, that worked too. So hopefully just more and more of these reps stack up. We're not the only ones watching this tape. So are the coaching staffs. And then they reorganize the depth chart after that. To me, it's that simple.
Yep. I think that he's probably not someone who should be drafting in redraft. I think in best ball, he can take some chances. I'll just know this. Matt Collins is out there and he eats up snaps for everybody. Same thing with Keyshawn Boutte. I think he's going to be a part-time player for a large chunk of the season. And hopefully he shows up enough down the stretch where it was a worthwhile investment in best ball. Did not like how buried he was out there, but did really like his tape. So pros and cons.
I know you want to talk about the Minnesota Vikings, so let's do it now because this is actually the second game action we've ever seen of JJ McCarthy in a Vikings uniform. He went out there with 4 completions, 7 attempts for 30 yards, did scramble another time for 8 yards. Again, that is just 8 total dropbacks. What did you see with him and then this Vikings offense in general?
The caveat here, Justin Jefferson was not out there, but you saw a lot of fullback. You saw a lot of second tight ends out there. And on first downs in particular, you saw that heavier personnel than we're typically used to seeing out there. And they ran the ball and they kept talking about how important Jordan Mason is going to be out there. Josh Oliver played a lot. There was even some like 3 wide receiver sets where Oliver was out there instead of TJ Hawkinson, and they were trying to run the ball. So I was like looking at the offseason moves and this preseason game and how JJ McCarthy was used at Michigan. And it all points to not this super pass heavy offense, not this super downfield heavy offense that we saw with Sam Darnold, and actually more closely aligned to like the Kyle Shanahan version of this scheme where it's very balanced and they're getting the ball to their playmakers and they have an awesome X wide receiver. But I think that this offense is not going to look exactly the same as it has previously. I know that Nick Mullins has had games. Josh Dobbs has had games. I just think that's like a different era of the Vikings. They have a great defense, and this quarterback is good in the play action game. He had a nice little pass in this one, also airmailed some. So I just think that structurally this offense looked different than it did in previous versions of it.
I totally agree with you. And we'll see. We'll see if projections change. We'll see if that means very good things for Jordan Mason, who did play in this game. Obviously, Aaron Jones did not. And Jordan Mason got a whole bunch of run with the first team offense. Okay, before we hit on a whole bunch of other prospects, rookies, later round picks, need to ask you one more time to hit that subscribe button. We appreciate you. And more importantly, since we're talking about these 11th round wide receivers that we want to avoid and all this movement based on first preseason action, there's never been a time better than right now to draft over on the Dog app on Underdog. It is best ball. All you do is draft, and that is it. You never set your lineup or check it again, and it gets you ready and prepared for your home league drafts. It's the best homework in order to study up and know which sections, which tiers, and which pockets to draft from in your home league. So again, that's promo code the show. Click the link in the description down below to play on Underdog right now. Do it if you never have before. Okay. Seattle Seahawks time. Tory Horton, a prospect we talked about in our top, I think, 15 wide receiver show coming out of Colorado State, had an injury there. I'm not going to say he's been buried on this depth chart because the buzz, the drumbeat has kind of been growing out in Seattle. Hayden, when you just looked at him, he just moved very well. He moved like an NFL wide receiver in terms of making his cuts on a dime. There was quickness there. And maybe most notably to me is that he was the first team punt returner. So that would make him active on game days, which is always a way to get into the lineup for opportunities.
Among 5th round picks, he's got one of the highest floors out there. He's going to be on this football team. I think he will probably be the 3rd wide receiver in this offense. Also, we're going to have to talk about the offense as a whole. But yeah, the speed is real. And that's what it was in college. They didn't like ask him to like run a bunch of like deep routes. There's a lot of like quick hitting zone hitches and intermediate crossing routes in college. And I thought that there's like a chance that he can just be like a huge post and go ball guy in the NFL in a different offense. And that's what they're going to ask him to do in Seattle. Clint Kubiak and Sam Darnold under center, huge play action shots. They're desperate for somebody to kind of step up for that role. It does not sound like MVS has had a good camp. So like this one makes sense. If he's their third wide receiver, I think that's going to make sense. How valuable is that role? If they're going to always have two tight ends and a fullback and all that BS, I'm not sure about that. So I would be careful on like making him like the 170th pick, an underdog here. Is he going to play? He is going to play. And I actually do think he's good. It's just like, okay, then he averages 1.6 targets per game. And then what?
I was going to bookend your point with that because basically every time Mike McDonald gets on the podium, he talks about how they're going to run a base offense and how we're going to put big bodies out there, 12 personnel, 13 personnel, 21 personnel, 22 personnel. They have a fullback named Oots that they used a whole bunch of as a lead blocker, even got him out there as a receiver. Look, I know this isn't a running back show, but if you don't believe that Kenneth Walker is going to stay healthy and you don't like that we promote him so much, you better be exiting every single one of your drafts with Zach Charbonnet, because this team is going to run the freaking rock and they're going to do play action off of that. And that's when you get JSN and that's when you get Cooper Kupp. And look, Cooper Kupp hasn't been the beacon of health. And so maybe that is the opportunity for when Tory Horton comes in here. But this team is just going to lean into the physical nature of what many teams across the league are doing right now.
Yeah, you're like hoping he like turns into like Rashid Shaheed in this offense, but for every one of those, there's 100 guys that didn't pan out. Something else on my radar, Elijah Arroyo, who I was interested in as a prospect. He ran a couple of wheel routes, post routes. He's definitely really fast on tape. He got lit up in the blocking department in this game, and
it was like that at Miami too.
And that's how he was. And you just see him. He's about this wide standing next to like NFL tackles and stuff. So
dropped his head down, all that stuff.
You're going to see AJ Barner a lot this year, especially if like Robbie Oots is out there and like he's getting real reps. Like that's at the expense of an Elijah Arroyo. So yeah, people are drafting Elijah Arroyo. I tip my hat. I wish you the best of luck. He can definitely have a 50-yard touchdown. You can't say that about a bunch of tight ends. I don't think he's going to play a whole bunch this year for that reason alone.
What about Jalen Milroe? What'd you think of our guy Milroe in terms of he's viewed as a mobile running quarterback? And he certainly did some of that. The speed certainly translated because he was able to beat a whole bunch of defenders to the edge. But again, what I thought he showcased in this game too was pure dropbacks plus play action and like working in the confines of the pocket too, plus some accuracy, which people definitely had questions about.
Yeah, my notes here, speed unquestionably translates. No surprise there. Milroe's accuracy, I thought, was a positive. I also thought that he got kind of grouped into like he has Anthony Richardson accuracy. Was not the case at Alabama. Third and long situations were a total mess for Jalen Milroe. So they're going to have to work through that. At this point, though, I mean, I watched more Drew Lock, and it's just not doing it for me. Let's just put Jalen Milroe at quarterback 2, get him some actual reps and practice. We know where this thing's going to end up. It's going to be a sink or swim situation for Drew Lock or Jalen Milroe. One guy actually has a ceiling here. So I think I saw enough to put Jalen Milroe as the second quarterback. But I don't think either of them are nearly as good as Sam Darnold is right now. So
I'm with you on that quarterback 2 note on Milroe. He was late to some things, obviously, but the speed of the NFL is much quicker. Not talking about his speed because man, oh man, if he ever does start NFL games, instant pickup and instant start.
Did you see, I'm not sure if you listened to it, but on the one where he got to the outside, the broadcasters were like, oh, he might house it. They were like 80 yards away. Like that's how excited they were. Like he's going to house it. Insane.
One of my favorite moments and viewings this weekend was watching Isaac TeSlaa. He is going to earn playing time in this offense, Hayden, and it's because of his blocking. If you think of Dan Campbell, if you think of Brad Holmes, they want people have grit, to be tough. And then you see him close down on a safety that is trying to fill the lane as a fill player and basically crack down into him. He gets after it and blocking out in a lead swing on an RPO as well, screen wide receiver, and gives him, plenty of room to the sideline to attack. And then on top of it, Hayden, I think Isaac TeSlaa is like a really good mover for his size at around 6'3.5", 216 pounds. He was lining up inside. He was lining up outside. Look, we know that Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jameson Williams are stone cold locks for their spots, but that third wide receiver by the end of the season, I firmly believe Isaac TeSlaa is going to be a member of that wide receiver trio.
Yeah, I need to move him up the rankings. Just got done watching him. Yeah, noticed the exact same thing as you did. They got him a little like kind of pick route, and then he went up and made a play. So yeah, the athleticism certainly there. It's I don't know why he caught 14 or whatever passes at Arkansas for all those years. Love his haircut. Love everything about this kid. There's no wide receiver 3 like on this team. Like they're hoping it's going to be him. A lot of third round picks we like hope they're the third wide receiver and they just really aren't. It does seem like he has like an actual pathway to do that. And he's not playing like in the slot. You think like some like long haired blonde white kids, like only a slot wide receiver. No, like he's as athletic as most of your favorite outside wide receivers. And they've been putting him on the outside.
Our favorite conversation, Luther Burden. For all the knocks that Luther Burden got, I thought he made multiple headsy plays in this game. Okay. There was an early 3rd and 15 that he was a part of. He has Mike Hilton in the slot versus him. He attacks the dark areas of Mike Hilton's backside, kind of weaves and spins him like a top, and then sits down 1 yard short of the sticks. And as soon as he catches it, it's not like he tries to make someone miss. No, he dives forward to get the first down. And then just before the end of the first half, there's 5 seconds to go. They clear everything out, run a slant across the field, get the ball in his hands. He doesn't try to, again, run towards the end zone or pick up anything more. He gets just enough and gets out of bounds just in time for them to kick a field goal just before the end of the half. So again, for all the knocks, all the concerns that Luther Burden has no idea what's going on in the football game, 2 instances that were very positive to me with some game awareness. Hats off to you, Luther.
Yeah, absolutely. I have the same exact notes. Those were both great reps. Mike Hilton's faced a slot wide receiver a trillion times throughout his career, and Luther Burden definitely got the most of him. So yeah, he was with the second team. They rested like Olamide Zaccheaus and Caleb and all those guys.
Which is notable because I do believe that right now, if the Bears lined up tomorrow, Olamide Zaccheaus would be the starting third wide receiver for this team.
Definitely so. Luther Burden is being drafted well after you're drafting your own backup. So you're still playing for this just like he's too athletic. And for Ben Johnson, like Ben Johnson will like give him a compliment and then like kind of tear him down. And it almost seems like he's like trying to motivate him at this point. But he did say every single time the ball is in his hands, he looks like the player that we were drafting. And that's why you're drafting a Luther Burden. But I do agree. I think right now he is the 4th wide receiver. He's going to be a slot player. That's where he was out here in the preseason game. But this is like an open competition, everything in Chicago.
And he was wide open for a touchdown that Tyson Bagent lacked some cojones to throw and took the underneath route instead. So only good things for me for Luther Burden after week 1 of the preseason. And hopefully we get to see him more and more in the next 2 contests too. 2 rookies that we really enjoyed watching at Iowa State are teammates again at the Houston Texans. Jayden Higgins and Jalen Noel, they both play in this game, even though CJ Stroud and Nico Collins did not. So what'd you see from this Hawkeye tandem?
Higgins was out there
Cyclone tandem.
Yeah, Cyclones.
My bad.
18 of 22 snaps with the starting offense, if you will, here for Jayden Higgins. So he's ahead of Jalen Noel. Jalen Noel was out there, played some outside. They kind of used him as like a motion member. This is Jalen Noel, and this is like how I would use him too. He doesn't have to be in the slot, but I do think that's probably where he's going to be most effective. I'm guessing that Christian Kirk's going to start the season as a second wide receiver, and then Jayden Higgins will be better than Christian Kirk, and then we'll see if Jalen Noel does enough. To me, I thought it was a much better 3rd round wide receiver than your classic 3rd round wide receiver. But yeah, I didn't see much on tape from either one of them or the offensive line or anything really.
Yeah, I mean, Jayden Higgins, I think, only got 1 or 2 targets in this game. I still think if we look at, 2 wide receiver sets, it's going to be mixing and matching based on however they want to do it with Jayden Higgins and Christian Kirk, if they even believe that Christian Kirk is a 2 wide receiver set player. Jalen Noel's a difficult one for me. No doubt in my mind that he's talented. And at some point in his contract, he's going to be the starting slot wide receiver or 3rd wide receiver for the Houston Texans. But something I think right now has to happen to Christian Kirk in order for him to get on the field. An injury, something else. And so that's why the pathway for me, it's blocked at this point. Again, the season is very long and he is certainly can play football at a high level, but that's what is holding me up in drafting Jalen Noel at this point.
His ADP has dropped like 40, 50 spots. And it's like now to the point where he's actually being drafted next to all of the other number 4 wide receivers. It's on us to figure out if we would rather take, another running back or another one of these Jalen Noel, Jalen Coker types out there. But I did like Noel and Higgins as prospects. But like you said, Christian Kirk, he's just one of these guys. He will block these guys in some way.
Let's talk Malik Washington because Miami Dolphins quarterback Tua Tagovailoa did play in this game. We know Devon Achane did as well. Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle did not. And so for a team that does not have Jonnu Smith on the roster anymore, we are kind of searching for this, third or even fourth pass catcher that is not a running back on this team. With Tyreek and Jalen Waddle out, basically the entire offense from a passing standpoint flowed through Malik Washington. They were getting him in motion. They were getting him on crossing routes. He made some tough grabs on top of it. I don't want to make any promises here, but that did stand out to me that, like, hey, if this Tyreek Hill thing does go sideways or Jalen Waddle does miss games, it certainly looked like to me that Malik Washington is going to be the fill-in.
Yeah, they were trying to give him the ball. They were all on like 4-yard quick outs. So it's like hard to extrapolate what the hell that even means here. He's fast. He's small. He looked like the same Malik Washington. He's like, maybe he can be a Wan'Dale Robinson, like I think that's kind of what we're getting out of him. He's no Tyreek Hill. He's no Jalen Waddle. Also, just a quick note, way after Taj Washington, USC legend.
Another Washington guy. Yes.
He was really dicing some dudes up way down the field. So just noting that. He looked good.
Hayden is doing the meme of all of Twitter looking at Malik Washington, and then his head turns and it's Taj Washington.
No one's in line with me.
All right. I've got some questions to close out this show based on some rookies that people are drafting, and you need to answer on if they are draftable or undraftable at this point. Okay. 3 of them. Maybe you can throw some at me at the end. Okay. I mentioned his name earlier. His name is Jack Besh, 14th round pick in your home leagues at this moment, going, I believe, even earlier than that on Underdog. Is Jack Besh draftable right now? 16th round, on Underdog at this moment.
No, he's not draftable. He's playing on the outside, which is like not the exact role that we were hoping for pre-draft wise. He's running with the second team, and we'll see how good the offensive line is and how many points they score. So I have him ranked 218th. So in best ball, if he falls in ADP and you want to stack him up with Geno Smith, then sure. But typically somebody's drafting him before them. I haven't really drafted him much at all. So I'm out.
Tre Harris, Los Angeles Chargers, 11th round pick on Underdog right now, undrafted in your home leagues. Draftable or undraftable?
Not draftable in redraft. You can't draft him anywhere near these ADPs. I think I have Tre Harris in the draftable range, like on Underdog if he falls far enough. But here's the problem. I don't know how to divvy up the third wide receiver spot between him and Quentin Johnston and then the other guy who's apparently just been better than Tre Harris. I went back and watched the Tre Harris routes. He didn't look that fast.
Nope.
Like he's supposed to be like a decent outside wide receiver that can take the top off and go compete with Quentin Johnston. At least I know Quentin Johnston is fast. Now I know he can't catch the ball. So here's the reality. Keenan Allen is here. Keenan Allen is going to be in our fantasy lives. He's going to play almost every single snap. You're going to watch him for get 7 targets per game. You're not going to love putting him in your PPR flex spot in week 8, but you're going to have to do it eventually. And I moved Keenan Allen way up. And I think that all of these other guys, Harris, Johnson, and then the other rookie, they're going to be like divvying it up like a role that's not that valuable. So I don't know, man.
Keenan Allen has climbed 48 spots in the past week in ADP over an Underdog. The other 2 wide receiver movements, Emeka Egbuka up 7 spots and Demario Douglas up 7 spots as well. Okay, one more name for you. Jalen Royals. Jalen Royals is a 17th round pick on Underdog right now. We know he's at the Kansas City Chiefs and going undrafted in your home leagues. Draftable or undraftable?
Undraftable, second string offense. Jason Brownlee subbed in the red area and made a fantastic play from Patrick Mahomes.
Which I think has been a common thing with Brownlee and his length being a go-to player for this team in the red zone.
Yeah, we'll see if he makes the roster, but that was like, you can't, if you're not in the red zone, you have no value to me. Tyquan Thornton was out there, and Tyquan Thornton actually got a red zone slant that didn't get caught. Juju Smith was ahead of him. Obviously, Xavier Worthy and Rashee Rice. I mean, Hollywood Brown, could you be drafting the 6th wide receiver on teams? I think he's going to make the roster, but like him and Rashard Smith, it's like so many things have to go right for it.
Well, and especially if Jalen Royals doesn't make a dent when Rashee Rice is suspended. If that's the case and Rice comes back, then what are we doing here? So just to recap, Keenan Allen right now is a 13th round pick over on Underdog. We didn't even mention Dante Thornton when talking about these guys. He's just like so thin to me, and he's a purely like vertical player and then works off that vertical line. I'm not sure if I want to invest in that in any of these platforms. Tory Horton is a 16th round pick. Jack Besh is a 16th round pick. I would much rather take a look at De'Ami Brown and Alec Pierce in the 16th round at this moment. We get into round 17. We mentioned Jalen Noel's name. Jalen Royals is going at the same point. I would much rather go into the 18th round and take Isaac TeSlaa.
To me, Darius Slayton is better than all these guys by 50 to 100 fantasy points. And that's not even like pricing that Malik Neighbors' toe could act up, and then what happens. So this was a wide receiver class that like we kind of started enjoying in like day 2 guys, like picking our battles. But the guys that we love, like Kyle Williams, like is a little bit buried right now. And like to me, the most mispriced guys, it's actually Emeka, Travis Hunter, Matthew Golden, and Jayden Higgins. Like the first round guys, I don't think that we've appreciated how much upside those guys have. And I'm not all that interested in your Elikai Umanors, your Jalen Royals, Deontay Thornton, those type of guys. I would rather go the kind of the veteran option there, or just a totally different position.
You know what I'd love is if they did something to make us change our mind next week in preseason action. And we'll be here.
We'll be here.
Breaking it all down. We have another 16 preseason games that Hayden and I are going to watch once again. So we'll be back next Monday. Probably just one show next week. I highly doubt we have so many takeaways, 2.5 hours worth like we did this week. But if that's the case, then we'll split up into 2 shows. That's for sure. Trust me, though. Tomorrow, a live show. It's all dedicated to your question and answers. Once again, leave them in the comments down below. Thursday, it's my favorite pick in every single round. Hayden's is already up on the channel. Go and watch that. Nailed it last year, I got to say. Lots to live up to. Some big league winners were selected in the video last season, and so I got a repeat performance. Plus, plenty of shows. We start our cheat code videos for Sleeper, ESPN, and Yahoo next week. On top of it, there has been no better time than right now to support the channel by hitting that subscribe button and leaving a thumbs up and forcing us all the way to 160,000 subscribers. Meet the challenge. All right, people, do it for us. Go and play an underdog at the same exact time. Get your reps in. Shout out to Hayden, Weaves, Mosho, up the villa. We'll talk to y'all soon. See ya. My dog is trying to get in here. It's storming. Give me a sec.
Yep.
Okay, come on. All right. Thank you, bud. All right.